The diabetes, the arthritis, the heart disease, the dementia, the obesity, the cancers are affecting about 70% of deaths.
We have an epidemic cascade of debilitating disease that's overcoming the country.
18% of children are morbidly obese right now. We're on par to have 1 in 3 people be diabetic in the next 25 years. That's crazy statistics.
Have this very dangerous situation.
Large amounts of these substances have unquestionably been associated with clogged arteries, high blood pressure, diabetes, autoimmune diseases. Absolutely, the science is solid.
We're talking life and death.
Health organizations have become co-opted. They are taking money from the very industries who are causing the problems.
There's a very strong pharmaceutical industry and lobby that has a huge stake in preserving the status quo.
We've got a $35 billion statin drug industry. Do they ever want to see that go away?
The government's in bed with anyone that gives them the most money.
These are government programs.
Consumers have no idea.
We consider it normal that a town the size of the town I grew up in gets wiped out every year. If that many people were being killed by some terrorist group in the United States every year, we would find them.
From a community standpoint, from all other aspects, we're in a state of emergency.
They care more about cooperation than do people.
They spend at least $138 million lobbying Congress.
These companies really have a vested interest in making sure that the public doesn't have information about their effects.
Any little thing that comes up, man, they beat it to death.
They're trying to silence people into not speaking out and not showing the truth.
If that's where you want to go with this, I'm sorry, I'm not the person that you should be talking to.
The European Association of Style.
CFR 369 Live, the Cry Freedom Show with Lisa.com. It's Tuesday, the 11th of April 2023. And I'm reporting back now on a recent fast that I completed over Easter. And this Easter felt very important from a totally non-man-made religion point of view regarding the whole allegory of crucifixion and resurrection. However you want to see it, we live in epic times and there is so much revelation going on right now. The other day about the Dalai Lama, and it's going to be coming out about a lot more people. We're going to be showing things in such plain sight, but the way they're doing it is very good because it is trickling out in a way that is not alarming people. Well, it will alarm people, but not to the extent that it would be if it was all coming out at the same time. And it is ongoing big time. And recently I watched a documentary from 2017 called What the Health? Wow, well, nothing I didn't really know already, but wow still. And every single human being on this planet that is able should watch this documentary. It tells you all you need to know about the food industry. And an industry it so is like all the rest. It's beyond shocking what has been done to our species. But I tell you one thing, it shows just how incredibly resilient we actually are to even get to like 60, 70 given everything that's done to us. If you want to watch this documentary, by the way, let me know. It is on Netflix, apparently. I looked at it on Look Movies, which you can get free on the internet. And I do have a link if anybody wants that, so let me know. But yes, we are poisoned at every single turn in this place, seriously. From the food and the water to the trails in our skies and what is put into the land and just etc, etc, etc. It's actually almost unimaginable what the suckers who run this place do to it, and it's stuff that most of us would never do, because a lot of us do realise the importance of this planet that we live on. And all I want to do, and all I've ever really wanted to do, is nurture the nature on the earth, because it's so very, very beautiful and special. Yet all these quote-unquote people want to do is destroy it for the sake of profit and control, it would appear. And essentially, they are the evil ones in that way, not us, though they'd always have us believe that it is us. And I think now it's time to take it back, guys, like never before. We can either sit on our laurels doing naff all and just moaning, or we can actually stand up and roar like that bloody lion and seize it all back. That's what I'm trying to do, and yes, I know it's hard. I've been procrastinating as much as anyone over these last 3 years because it's been totally crap. And I know, watching lamb after lamb go into that slaughter, never willing to listen to us, who only ever really want to try to help because of what we have been willing to see and know. But it is what it is, and that's a phrase I've been using a lot of late. Anyway, enough bleating, onto the fast. So, I've been aware of the amazing benefits of fasting for some time now, and I do have 2 16-day fasts under my belt that I did a few years ago. It wasn't easy, but that said, the more into it you get, the easier it becomes, and after the first sort of 3 days, you will go through a few detox symptoms, obviously depending on how much work you've done before to detox before you start the fast. And it does feel like, you've got the flu, etc., etc., but that's just normal. And I often think to myself that most people now that don't know about these things, if they suddenly had no food and they went 3 days and started feeling like that, they'd think they were dying, and they'd almost convince themselves that their body was dying. But it's not, it's detoxing. People have gone for 40 days and more without eating, that's the point. That's an important point I need to get across to people, not to panic. If we ever do get to a situation where suddenly everything stops and you're worried about food, etc., you can go for a long time without, so don't panic, okay? Anyway, when I did my 16-day fast, it was hard because I had to cook for other people every evening, and this had to continue whilst I wasn't eating. But it did actually get to the stage where I was kind of getting off on just smelling the food. It's very good for the waistline, has to be said. But I have to confess that recently I have struggled with incentive for fasting, probably because of these last 3 hard years we've all had to face. Because it has been difficult, no question, and many of us, although always remaining positive for the future, have suffered in moments seeing the carnage around us. It's been one hell of a learning platform, right? And I truly believe that is how we have to see it. Again, hard though it's been. And in honesty, I've had it lightly compared to some. I've not had to work in these environments. The people I live with agree with me in all ways, so we didn't have to go through that whole argument and decision thing. We took no part of it, well, apart from my brother who wore a mask at work, which I never would have done, and I never did. I personally didn't partake of one piece of any of it over these last 3 years, even down to being the only person in the whole of my local Aldi without a mask. Nothing would have persuaded me to wear one, and it all comes down to, as all things do, individual choice. Every single person on this planet has a choice, no matter what we think of the control system, and this is just truth. So anyway, after a few failed attempts at fasting this year, I did actually manage a 1-day one a few weeks ago, and I finally made it through 3 days over Easter, which again felt so very relevant this year. And so yes, I fasted through the crucifixion and the resurrection, and I kind of see that as a huge marker for our species at this point. I feel better for doing it, I have to say that, because I didn't prepare for it properly, i.e., as I say, eat less and eat well for a good few days before starting. I did suffer a bit on the last day. The first 2 were fine actually, apart from the habit of eating, which is what it is mainly, isn't it? But I did wake up on day 3 feeling very flu-like with my detox symptoms, shaky and sort of fuzzy-headed, etc., and sort of hot and cold a bit. But that was down to me, so now it's done, and I do feel better for it. My plan now is to fast for 2 days every weekend and eat only fruit and veg during the week. And then, hopefully in May, I can do an extended fast and try and beat my current record of 16 days. So the benefits from doing this are massive, guys, and yes, I know it's hard again, but it comes down to basically taste buds versus longer, healthier life. Bit of a no-brainer really, isn't it? It does not mean we cannot enjoy life. Let's face it, we're all programmed from early on to think that the enjoyment of eating and tasting is a major part of our lives, and of course it is. But the fact is that we're tempted by crap food and drink, left, right and centre, and it does absolutely nothing for these incredible meat suits that we walk around in. So control system aside, this place we live in is amazing beyond compare, and I truly wish that I could get out there to see more of it, but we all have constraints forced down upon us because of the very system, so we just do the best we can, and that is all we can ever do. And another way of looking at regarding the food thing is that, and this is something that George, my friend George, very much speaks about, is that if he does go out one day and have a meal that possibly isn't as good as it could be, etc., and a few drinks or whatever, then the next day he will fast to basically help his body through that and to boost his immune system. And that's the way I think to do it, because we do live surrounded by these things, so it is very difficult. But then that said, after what I've read about cheese and dairy produce and meat and what it says in this documentary that I'm talking about, What the Health, I don't think I ever want to touch any of them again, hard as it is. Because cheese is completely and utterly addictive. It's designed to be addictive. It's almost like, and it says again in this doc about it, it's almost like a sort of a drug to the brain. You know, it's like cocaine, etc., because it does the same thing to the brain, and that's why people become so addicted to it. And so again, it's all about self-control really, isn't it? And making the best decisions for your body and deciding on whether you want to live a longer life, more healthily, giving up these things, or sacrifice those extra years by enjoying the things that you want to eat. And again, all comes down to personal choice, no judgments whatsoever. So I'm going to end this now, and I'd like to thank Ben very much for allowing me to produce this to play on his show. I will also be playing it on my station on the loop at thecryfreedomshowwithlisa.com, and I'll also be putting out a YouTube video for it. And I'm now going to play a short video by a guy called Dr. Jin W. Sung, which is all about 3-day fasting. It tells us exactly what it does for your immune system and your body as a whole. So I hope this has been useful. This is our way forward. We have to heal ourselves from all the damage that's been done for our bodies and all things around us. This is the time, guys, so let's do it together. Thanks a lot and much love. CFR 369 Live, the Cry Freedom Show with Lisa.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Jin Sung, where clinical excellence meets excellent results. Today we're going to talk about the 3-day water fast. Clean the brain, reset your energy. Let's get into some of the benefits and what happens during the 3 days. Let's get right into it. Benefits: improves immune function, repairs damage to cells, removes dysfunctional cells and pathogens, reduces neural inflammation, or basically things like prime glial cells, increase autophagy, breaks down cells and other pathogens in our system, decreases autoimmune disease, benefits gut flora or resets the gut flora, and increases DNA repair. Okay, so there's a lot of benefits to a 3-day fast. Now, if you want to do the 3-day fast, I would suggest consulting a physician, especially if you have insulin-dependent diabetics, right? Because if you go on a fast and you continue to take your insulin, it's going to be problematic. People who are menstruating, I suggest not doing a 3-day fast during menstruation because it could really deplete you. Hypoglycemics, people who go without eating, get shaky, irritable, angry, right? Those are the people who do not want to do a 3-day fast immediately. They need to get into more of a keto adaptive state before going on a 3-day fast. People who are on a lot of different medications, because medications can change or dosages can change related to how much you're eating and depletion of energy. So just make sure if you have any of these conditions, please consult your physician before going ahead and doing a 3-day fast. So let's get into some of the things that happen during a 3-day fast. So 8 to 12 hours, what's going to happen is you're going to start to deplete your glucose or sugar and your glycogen stores, right? It'll decrease that. You're going to have a bump in hormones called glucagon, human growth hormones, cortisol, and adrenaline. These are the things that will start to bump up your glucose levels. So people don't realize that there are hormones that increase glucose in our system as we need it. And there's one hormone called insulin that brings glucose down in our system. So it's really 4 to 1, 4 hormones to 1 in terms of regulating blood sugar. You will also increase ketones from fats. So as you deplete your glucose stores or glycogen stores, your body will start to use fat for fuel, and it will produce something called ketones to fuel your body. You also will start to experience hunger, all right? So in the next 18 to 24 hours there, you're gonna have a depletion of the glycogen stores even further, and you're gonna go through a process called gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis is the process of producing sugar through the liver. It's basically amino acid, acetate, and glycols. So you can use that to fuel your body. Your body will have a natural mechanism to fuel itself. Further increase in autophagy. Autophagy is when you have cellular debris, things that are in your system that are kind of old and broken down. It'll start to kind of clean those things out of our system. It will also start to decrease autoimmunity because a lot of autoimmune conditions are related to food proteins. So if you have things that you're eating and it's causing inflammatory responses, the fact that you're on a fast will start to decrease that autoimmune process. It'll decrease neural inflammation. So when your body is used to using glucose, especially in the brain, it can cause some inflammatory processes. When you switch your fuel from glucose to ketones, your brain will start to become a hybrid. So it will start to use ketones for fuel rather than glucose, and it will start to decrease inflammation. I have a separate video on this, so I'll link that below. It will also increase hormones called brain-derived neurotrophic factors and human growth hormones. And you'll start to see ketones in your blood. So what you can do is you can buy a little ketone meter. It's like a glucose test. You just prick your finger and you can check your level of ketones. And in the first 18 to 24 hours, you're going to see 0.5 to maybe 1 in terms of the ketone levels. Now, everyone's different in terms of how fast they can go into ketosis. If you're someone who's very experienced and you do intermittent fasting and you're on a ketogenic diet, you're going to get into ketosis a little bit quicker. Day 2, you're going to continue to increase brain-derived neurotrophic factors as well as growth hormones. You're going to increase autophagy, and this is where the real cleanup starts to occur in day 2. You'll start to break down tau proteins and amyloids, Lewy body, alpha-synucleins, and prime glial cells, all in the brain. These are all related to things like post-traumatic stress, concussions, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Lewy body dementia. So it starts to break down these aggregates in our brain, and it clears it out. There's the process called mitophagy. It'll start to get rid of inefficient mitochondria in our cells. So mitochondria produces energy, ATP, and you want mitochondria to be very efficient and produce the number of ATPs that it's supposed to, and it'll start to get rid of things that are damaged and get it out of our system, okay? Your insulin resistance starts to come down. So people who are pre-diabetic, diabetic, your insulin resistance or the problem of not enough glucose transport will start to break, right? So insulin resistance will start to improve. It'll decrease fatty liver. And the reason is because you're using fat for fuel, and part of that fat will come from the liver. So fatty liver will start to break down, and you can clear fatty liver if it's not too far advanced. 90 to 95% of your energy will start coming from ketones in day 2, right? Instead of glucose, because you haven't eaten. And your hunger pains will start to actually subside in day 2. For a lot of people, they go, I don't really feel hungry. I feel actually pretty good, right? Day 3, continued autophagy and clearance, reversal of real chronic disease. So people who have chronic autoimmune disease, chronic fatigue, a lot of issues with joint pain, those types of things will start to clear to a certain extent. It will increase your immune function, right? So your immune function will start to reset and improve, and there will be an improvement in overall function of the white blood cells. You'll also have increase in stem cells, right? The stem cells will differentiate into other tissues. So the stem cells will actually help you heal. Now, the goal of this 3-day fast is what we call metabolic flexibility or metabolic switch. The ability for your body to use both glucose and ketones whenever it wants. So if you are someone who eats every day, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, what happens is you're using insulin mostly, right? Because you never let the sugar drop, right? So you get this wild fluctuation. So you have spike in sugar, spike in insulin, drop in sugar, drop in insulin. So you get this wild swing. The purpose of a 3-day fast or any type of fasting is to even out the blood sugar throughout the day. So if you eat, let's say, what we call one meal a day, you'll have a spike in insulin, and then you'll have a drop, and your other hormones will kick in, like glucagon, growth hormones, adrenaline, etc., will kick in and will stabilize the blood sugar for the rest of the day. So that's what we want. We want stable blood sugar throughout the day, not this wild fluctuation. So as you do this intermittent fasting or 3-day fasting, there'll be a lot of health benefits. But the main point here is that it will start to stabilize blood sugar and your body will become a hybrid. Meaning when it has the sugar, it'll utilize it. If it doesn't have it and you skip a day of eating, then it will start to use ketones as fuels. So your engine becomes more of a hybrid engine rather than a gasoline engine. So it's very important to do that. Now, when you break your fast, you don't want to just go ahead and just say, all right, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. You want to use things like maybe bone broth, a vegetable soup to break your fast, maybe a small amount of protein. Okay. When you're doing the fast, you can use distilled water if you like, or purified water would be best. You can use minerals and sea salt, especially on day 2, maybe 24 to 48 hours. You want to start to use a little bit of minerals because you might feel a little bit depleted. So you can use minerals or sea salt in your water and you can drink it. And then you can also use sparkling water, but not flavored water, because what can happen with flavored water, you can start to increase hunger pains in your system. Now, for those people who can't get through a 3-day fast, I'm going to show you a method of doing a 3-day modified fast on our next video. So we'll talk about how to do it without doing strictly water for the 3 days. All right. So these are all the benefits. This is what happens. I have multiple videos on intermittent fasting, so I'll link those below. And what you want to do is, if you ever go through it, comment below. Let me know how you felt during the 3-day fast and what the benefits of the 3-day fast were for you. Now, when you do a 3-day fast, there's wide benefits. However, you have to be careful about some of those conditions that I talked about in the beginning of the video, and you want to consult a physician before doing it. All right, my name is Dr. Jin Sung, where clinical excellence meets excellent results, and we'll see you guys next week on the healthy side. Have an awesome day.
CFR 369 Live, the Cry Freedom Show with Lisa.com.
I think there's an interesting piece of hypocrisy to point out with regards to this, and specifically King Charles. I have to get used to saying King Charles now, who has just given his royal assent to new laws in the UK that okay the idea of gene-edited foods being unlabeled and undifferentiable from normal foods. He has just given his royal assent to that, despite the fact that King Charles not only was the person who literally launched the Great Reset. When the World Economic Forum had their launch party, it was King Charles who did that launch and was the first speaker.
The time to act is now.
Who announced the Great Reset to the world. But King Charles goes around the world jet-setting, of course, flying his private jets with all of his attendants. He has something like 120 staff who look after everything, including setting the bath temperature to just the right way and putting the bath plug in just the right position, cooking several different eggs for him every morning so he can find one with just the right consistency, traveling around with his own personal toilet seat, all, of course, the stupid royal nonsense. But also, he travels around with and not only his personal chefs, but his personal food supply, which is organic food only, because he will not touch the very stuff that he's trying to foist on the rest of us. But don't worry, guys, as part of One Health and as part of the UNEP, quadripartite, whatever they're going to thrust down your throat, they're going to say that this is in the name of protecting Mother Earth from those horrible, horrible farms that are producing all this horrible greenhouse gas emission. You guys are eating meat. Oh, you're eating all these horrible, you're contributing to the end of nature. What you need is this bioengineered lab-produced gunk from these corporations that have monopolized that industry. That's what's good for you. Just don't look to us to be eating it. No, that's for you guys, the plebs out there. Anyone who is not disgusted truly disgusted by the hypocrisy of this agenda, truly isn't paying attention to it. It has nothing to do with saving the planet.